Okay, so say the word Illuminati in a crowded room. You're going to get two, completely different reactions. It's almost a social experiment.
It really is. It's like a Rorschach test for where you get your news.
Exactly. Half the room, they're instantly thinking of this shadowy cabal controlling the banks, governments, maybe even the weather.
And the outcome of the World Cup, probably.
Yeah, totally. And the other half, they're thinking Jay-Z, Beyonce, the triangle hand signs at the Super Bowl, memes.
It's become arguably the most loaded word in pop culture. It's just a catch-all for people in charge doing stuff I don't get.
But here's the thing, and this is exactly why we're doing this deep dive. When you actually look at the sources, and we're talking historical registries, private letters from the 1700s, even some wild 60s counterculture magazines, you find there isn't one story.
No, there are two. Two completely contradictory stories fighting over that one word.
And I'm guessing neither of them involves lizard people.
That might be a disappointment for some, yeah. We'll break it to them gently.
So our mission today is to untangle this mess. We're going to separate the actual historical Bavarian Illuminati, which the sources paint as like a boringly short-lived club of intellectuals.
From the massive, sprawling modern myth of the New World Order. And we have to talk about the third player in the room.
The Freemasons.
The group that always gets blamed for what the Illuminati is supposedly doing.
Right. We've got a really interesting stack of sources for this one. Translated records from 1776 Bavaria. Some deep cuts on the Discordian movement of the 1960s, which is a plot twist I genuinely love.
Oh, it's the best part.
And some very specific local records about Freemasonry right here in Canada, in Toronto, to ground it all.
It's a great mix of history, sociology, and a little bit of psychology, why we believe what we believe.
I have to admit, digging into this, I'm kind of obsessed with the code names.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't want to join a club where you have to call the leader Spartacus?
It's very theatrical, but I think that's the key, right? We have to look at why we crave these stories.
Right.
Why do we want to believe a guy named Spartacus is pulling the strings?
Okay, so let's unpack that. Let's start with the OG group, the real historical Bavarian Illuminati. Who were these guys? Because the sources paint a picture that's less Bond villain and more frustrated academic.
That's a perfect description. To get it, you have to go back to Ingolstadt, Bavaria. The year is 1776. And the guy at the center of it all is Adam Weishaupt.
Professor Weishaupt.
Professor Weishaupt, yeah, professor of canon law. And context is everything. Bavaria in the 1770s, it was not a fun place to be if you were a forward thinker. The Catholic Church and the monarchy had an iron grip on everything.
So the Jesuits basically ran the education system, the political discourse, all of it.
A total stranglehold. So you have Weishaupt, who's soaking in all these new Enlightenment ideas, secularism, reason, science, but he's in a place where saying that stuff out loud gets you fired. Or excommunicated. Exactly.
Right.
So he wasn't trying to overthrow the banking system. He just wanted a safe space, a room where he and his students could talk about radical ideas like maybe the king shouldn't have absolute power without the secret police knocking.
The sources quote their stated goal as to protect the people from the oppression of the state.
Which ironically sounds a lot like the basis for modern democracy.
Right. Today, he'd just be a really aggressive blogger. But back then, this was dangerous. So May 1st, 1776, he launches his order.
And he models it on the Freemasons, but with a twist. He thought the Masons were too loose. He wanted a rigid hierarchy, obedience. And yes, this is where the code names come in.
He was Spartacus.
And his inner circle were Ajax, Tiberius. It was like historical role-playing, a way to psychologically break from the society they hated.
But looking at the records, they started out tiny.
Extremely tiny, 5 members. It was basically a glorified book club for his favorite students.
So how do we get from 5 guys in a room complaining about the Jesuits to a group that supposedly runs the world? They must have scaled up.
They did, and they did it because they brought in a marketing guy. Enter Baron Adolf von Nig.
Codename Philo.
Philo. And Nig is fascinating because he was Weishaupt's opposite. Weishaupt was this intense, antisocial academic. Nig was a socialite, a diplomat, and crucially, he was already a high-ranking Freemason.
Ah, so he knew how to organize. He basically redesigned the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Made the rituals cooler, more mysterious.
And he created a recruitment pipeline. And it worked. Under Nig, they went from 5 students to around 2,000 members across Europe in just a few years.
2,000 is a decent number, but it's still not global domination level.
It's not about the numbers, it was who they were. They attracted politicians, intellectuals. There's a lot of debate about Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, the guy who wrote Faust.
Yeah, the sources seem split. Was he in or not?
He was likely initiated, but probably just to see what the fuss was about. The bigger get was Johann Joachim Christoph Baudet, a famous musician who was huge in the social scene.
So things are going great for Spartacus and Philo. They've got momentum, but then it all falls apart so fast.
It's the classic startup story, founder conflict and government regulation. Weishaupt and Nig started fighting over power. Weishaupt was a control freak. Nig felt he built the thing and wasn't getting enough credit. He actually got fed up and quit in 1784.
And then the government hammer drops.
Right. The ruler of Bavaria, Charles Theodore, got paranoid about these secret groups. So in 1785, he just banned all of them, all secret societies.
Not just the Illuminati. A blanket ban. No more secret clubs.
The state cracked down hard. They seized the Illuminati's papers, which is actually why we have these sources today. The police published their private letters. Weishaupt had to flee. By about 1787, the historical Bavarian Illuminati was gone.
Okay, so let me get this timeline straight. Founded 76, gone by 87. That's, 11 years?
Here's a flash in the pan, a very brief moment.
So this is where it gets weird. If they died out before the 18th century even ended, why are we talking about them controlling the Super Bowl today? How did this myth survive for 250 years if the group didn't?
This is a masterclass in how conspiracy theories evolve. It happened in two big waves. The first was immediate. The French Revolution kicks off in 1789.
Guillotines, chaos, the whole deal.
And the monarchs of Europe are terrified. They can't believe the French monarchy just collapsed. They needed a scapegoat.
They couldn't accept that it was organic, that the people were just that angry.
Exactly. It had to be a plot. So you get these authors, Augustin Barruel and John Robison, writing bestsellers claiming the Illuminati hadn't died. They just went underground to start the revolution.
So it was a coping mechanism. The peasants aren't smart enough for this. It must be Spartacus.
Precisely. But even that theory faded. The real resurrection, the one that leads to Jay-Z and the internet memes, happened much, much later. And this is the part of the research that just blows people's minds.
The 1960s.
1960s. The modern New World Order myth wasn't discovered in some ancient tomb. It was invented as a joke.
Satire.
A prank. The sources point to a group called the Discordians. Specifically, writers for Playboy magazine, Robert Anton Wilson and Robert Shea.
Wait, Playboy. As in the magazine.
The very same. They were editors there, part of this counterculture movement that wanted to make fun of Cold War paranoia. They called it Operation Mindfract.
Wow. Okay, Operation Mindfract.
It was brilliant. They started writing fake letters to the editor of Playboy about the secret group called the Illuminati. Then they'd write other fake letters debunking the first ones.
You're trolling their own letters column.
They were trolling the world before the internet existed. They created this feedback loop of paranoia. Then Wilson took all these crazy ideas and put them into a sci-fi novel, the Illuminatus trilogy.
Which became a huge cult classic.
A huge cult classic. But here's the problem with irony. Eventually, people stopped getting the joke. As we get into the internet age, a new generation finds these texts and they don't see the satire, they take it as fact.
So the prank morphed into a serious belief system.
Yes. The narrative of the Illuminati controlling the world is basically a piece of 1960s fan fiction that got way out of hand.
That explains so much. But what about the symbol? The eye in the triangle, the pyramid on the back of the US dollar bill.
Yeah.
That has to be Illuminati, right?
That's another conflation. The symbol is the Eye of Providence. It's a Christian symbol for God watching over humanity. It shows up in Renaissance art long before Weishaupt was born.
So when the founding fathers put it on the doll...
We were saying God watches over our new nation. It had nothing to do with the Bavarian Illuminati. Their symbol was actually the owl of Minerva.
The owl?
Yeah, for wisdom. If you see an eye in a triangle, that's usually just Christian or Masonic symbolism.
So we have a myth started by royalists, revived by hippies as a prank, and now fueled by the internet algorithm.
That's the genealogy of the conspiracy, yeah.
But why does it stick? You know, from a sociological standpoint, why do we want to believe it?
It's what psychologists call the grand narrative. The human brain really struggles with chaos. History wars, pandemics, economic crashes. It's often random and terrifying. It's actually more comforting to believe a small group of evil geniuses is in control.
Because at least if someone's in control, there's a plan.
Exactly. Even if it's an evil plan, it implies order. It implies competence. Accepting that history is just a messy, uncoordinated series of accidents is much, much harder to process. We prefer the supervillain to sheer incompetence.
Wow. That makes a disturbing amount of sense. We want someone driving the bus, even if it's off a cliff.
Because the alternative is that nobody's driving. And that's way scarier.
Okay, so that's the Illuminati, a ghost story.
Right.
But we have to talk about the other group, the one that gets dragged into this constantly, the Freemasons.
Right. And the contrast is so important. If the Illuminati was this radical, failed startup, the Freemasons are like the IBM of secret societies. They're an ancient, massive, stable corporation.
And their origin wasn't angry professors, was it?
No, it was medieval stonemasons guilds, the guys who literally built the great cathedrals of Europe, operative masons.
So actual bricklayers.
Architects, engineers, the skilled labor. They had secret handshakes and passwords, not for world domination, but to prove they were qualified for the job. It was like a union card.
But eventually, the cathedral building boom ended.
Right. So to keep the guilds going, they started accepting speculative members.
Speculative, as in guys who didn't actually know how to build things.
Essentially, yeah. Philosophers, merchants, gentlemen, men who wanted to use the tools of the trade, the square, the compass, as metaphors for building a good character.
And when did this become the Freemasonry we recognize today?
The key date is 1717, the founding of the Grand Lodge of England in London. That's when it became a formal social organization, right in the middle of the Enlightenment.
And the sources say meritocracy was a huge part of their appeal.
It was revolutionary. In the 1700s, your life was determined by who your father was. The Masons offered a space where you were judged by your character, not your title. You met on the level.
And they have one very strict rule.
Right. No discussion of politics and no discussion of religion in the lodge.
Which is the total opposite of the Illuminati, who only talked about politics and religion.
Exactly. The Masons wanted to bring men of different backgrounds together in peace. If you start arguing about the king or the pope, the whole thing falls apart.
Let's talk about the roster. Because unlike the Illuminati, the Masons have a membership list that's just a history textbook.
It's a literal who's who of Western history. You've got founding fathers like George Washington and Benjamin Franklin,
Winston Churchill.
Sir John A. Macdonald, Canada's first prime minister.
And it's not just politics. Mozart.
Oh, yeah. The magic flute is famously full of Masonic symbolism.
And then you get the pop culture icons. Mark Twain, Oscar Wilde, and my personal favorites from the list, Shaquille O'Neal and Elvis Presley.
That is some dinner party.
Now, for anyone listening who might be walking around, say, Toronto or any major city, this isn't just abstract history. It's built into the city.
It is. The Grand Lodge of Canada in the province of Ontario was formed way back in 1855. It's based in Hamilton.
So if you're walking past an old government building or a church, what should you look for?
Look at the cornerstone, that ceremonial stone at the foundation. You'll often see a date and the square and compass symbol etched right into it. It's hiding in plain sight.
And the sources mentioned the Golden Falcon era in Toronto. I found that fascinating.
It's a great sociological detail. In the mid-20th century, you had this huge influx of Greek and Macedonian immigrants in Toronto. A lot of them went into the restaurant business.
The classic diners. And they joined the Masons.
In droves. For them, it wasn't about ancient secrets. It was a social safety net. It was business networking.
It was LinkedIn.
It was LinkedIn and an insurance policy. If you were new to the country and got sick, your lodge brothers would support you. It was a very practical, community-based thing.
I love that. It just strips away the whole spooky, eyes wide shut vibe and makes it, well, a Rotary Club with aprons.
That's a surprisingly accurate description.
So we have these two groups, Illuminati, political radicals dead and gone, Masons, social network, still here. Why the confusion? Why does everyone think the Masons are the Illuminati?
There is one grain of truth. We call it the infiltration.
Ooh, dramatic.
Remember Adam Weishaupt, when he was trying to grow the Illuminati, he realized recruiting from scratch was hard, so he had a bright idea.
Go after people who are already in a secret society.
Exactly. He joined a Masonic lodge in Munich. He used his membership to scout for talent. He'd look for the most radical, most disgruntled guys in the lodge and try to pull them into his inner circle.
So the Masons were the host body, and the Illuminati was like a parasite.
In a way, yeah. He tried to hijack their structure for his own political ends. And that historical overlap, that brief moment, is what conspiracy theorists latch onto.
Right.
They see the connection and assume the two are the same thing.
But it didn't last.
No. The Masons figured it out, and then the government ban came down. The Illuminati was purged, and the Masons went back to being a charitable fraternity.
And just to clarify the rituals, the aprons, the handshakes, rolling up the pant leg, what's that about?
It's pedagogy, a teaching method. The degrees entered apprentice, Fellowcraft, master mason are just stages of learning. The symbols are metaphors.
Like the square and compass.
Right. The square is about morality, acting on the square with people, being honest. The compasses are about keeping your passions in check, self-control. They're just reminders to be a decent person.
Acting on the square. I never knew that was a Masonic phrase.
It's everywhere. Giving someone the third degree, that's Masonic. On the level, Masonic.
Okay, so let's bring this home. We've gone from 1776 Bavaria to a 1960s magazine prank to a Toronto diner. What is the big takeaway here?
The takeaway is we need to be careful with our history. The Illuminati was a real thing, but it was a fleeting political blip. It died from bad management and government oppression. Freemasonry is a long-standing social network focused on morality.
They're completely different animals. One's a ghost, the other's a community center.
Exactly. But the ghost is way more fun to talk about.
It really is. And that leads me to a final thought I want to leave everyone with. We learned that the modern New World Order conspiracy, this thing millions believe, was basically jump-started by a couple of sci-fi writers in the 60s as a joke.
A very successful joke.
So here's the question. If that massive belief system started as a prank, what things are we seeing today on the internet? Memes, trolls, satirical posts that 50 years from now, people will treat as absolute historical fact.
That is a terrifying thought. We might be watching the birth of the next century's grand conspiracy right now, and we just think it's a funny meme.
Something to chew on. Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
Always a pleasure.
See you next time.